Heya Cryptozens, it's 10 p.m. Pacific time. The date is October 15th, 2022. Welcome back to the Crypto Overnighter. My name is Nikodemus, and I'll be your host as we take a nightly look at the crypto, NFT, and metaverse space and the industry that surrounds it. And keep in mind, nothing in this show should ever be considered financial advice. Tonight, it's weekend leftovers. These are all stories that I saw, but I didn't report on earlier this week. Monday. PayPal unintentionally made crypto's case for them, demonstrating exactly why self-custody and DeFi are so important. So did you hear about this? PayPal has changed their positions on a very controversial policy. This policy would have seen users fined for spreading misinformation, and not an inconsequential amount, $2,500. So what happened is, there was a clause in PayPal's Acceptable Use Policy, or AUP. This clause would have gone into effect on November 3rd, and it would have expanded the current list of illicit activities. This would now include, quote, the sending, posting, or publication of any messages, content, or materials that promote misinformation. Now, what's not clear is how they intend to monitor that. Who would decide what is misinformation? And if that misinformation is later proven true, would PayPal give that money back? It's just not very clear. The section that I've read just says, quote, including liquidated damages of $2,500 per violation, which may be debited directly from your PayPal accounts. Kind of scary. David Marcus is currently the CEO of Lightspark, but he is also the previous president of PayPal. He called it, quote, it's hard for me to openly criticize a company I used to love and gave so much to, but PayPal's new AUP goes against everything I believe in. A private company now gets to decide to take your money if you say something they disagree with. Insanity. Maple Finance co-founder Sid Powell does a good job of highlighting the crypto angle to this story. He said, quote, PayPal is a good example of why you need to custody your own funds. Your finances used to be decoupled from free speech. Now, custodying your own funds is the only way to safeguard that right for yourself. Well, after considerable backlash online, PayPal has bent the knee. They said that they're not going to punish their customers for misinformation. They said that this notice went out in error and that they never intended to punish their account holders. A spokesperson said, quote, an AUP notice recently went out in error that included incorrect information. PayPal is not fining people for misinformation, and this language was never intended to be inserted in our policy. Our teams are working to correct the policy pages. We're sorry for the confusion that this has caused. So they say that it went out in error and included incorrect information. I want to know how that gets started in the first place. I mean, why did they have a policy that had these words in it sitting around like this anyway? I mean, if it was accidentally put there, where the hell did it come from? What were they thinking when they added this text to their acceptable use policy for whatever reason? Tuesday. The Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences was awarded to 3 economists. It's for their work, which is said to have improved how nations and society deals with financial crises. So it was Ben Bernanke, Doug Diamond, and Philip Dybvig. And this was based on their research in the economic role banks play during times of financial crisis. The Nobel Prize organization said that this research included important information about why it's important to protect the banks. Of course, vital, they called it, that we avoid the collapse of banks. Tor Ellingson is the chair of the Committee for the Prize of Economic Sciences. He said, quote, the laureates' insights have improved our ability to avoid both serious crises and expensive bailouts. Now, Diamond took a look at the role banks play, acting as like a mediator between savers and borrowers. Banks can provide depositors access to their own funds, as well as provide the option of long-term loans. This research also takes a look at the vulnerabilities of banks. These vulnerabilities inspire rumors of imminent collapse, and then these rumors cause bank runs. And what that means is now with DeFi and crypto, banks have to rethink their place in society. Because DeFi could mean that banks are going to be out of job. DeFi takes out the middleman and passes both the risk and the savings on to the investor. That said, because they're non-custodial, DeFi brings the tools to the investor, and that goes double for the unbanked. That is, if you're brave enough to dive in. In the meantime, banks have taken notice. TradFi has been taking notes from the increasingly relevant role crypto is playing. Interestingly, the Central Bank of Switzerland says that it will be the central banks that push DeFi into the realm of mainstream with a combination of decentralization and centralization. So they're trying to carve out a more relevant space for them in terms of digital assets and digital money overall. Wednesday. Swift is in the news again, but they might not like it. Remember, we were just talking about this messaging system recently when they announced that they'd reached breakthroughs in their recent central bank digital currency experiments. This time they're in the news because of some potential competition. Here's what I mean. Visa is looking to use its B2B Connect network. They want to integrate that with JP Morgan's suite of blockchain-based cross-border payment products. So it looks like Visa and JP Morgan will be linking up. JP Morgan's Link to B2B Connect. Now, Link is a network that JP Morgan specifically set up for cross-border transactions. It's offered under their blockchain and payments initiative called Onyx. And what Onyx does is provide a place for institutions to share financial information and validate transactions. This is similar to Visa's B2B Connect in that it was built for institutional use and has now been integrated with Confirm, also under Onyx. Now, Confirm validates account information and ensures transacting parties are offering genuine identities and the correct information. Onyx brags that Confirm can validate more than 2 billion bank accounts from 3,500 institutions. So JP Morgan is looking for banks to join up as founding members across the globe. They're planning on launching in 10 countries this year, and they're expecting to be in 30 countries next year. One bank has already signed on. Deutsche Bank will be one of those founding members. Alex Littletone is the head of Confirm. In a public statement, he said, quote, Confirm's growth is heavily influenced by network effects. Naming Deutsche Bank as a founding member, while also establishing interconnectivity to Visa's B2B blockchain, will accelerate our adoption on a global scale. Now, they're not the only ones taking the challenge of cross-border payments. The Monetary Authority of Singapore is also looking at it. On October 10th, they said that they were looking at blockchain tech to provide solutions to current issues, specifically speed and costs. Ravi Menon is the managing director of the Monetary Authority. He said that the state of cross-border payments is, quote, not fit for the 21st century. It's slow, costly, opaque, and inefficient, relying on an archaic network of correspondent banks. He expects the expansion of the private sector blockchain-based networks could be one of the possible ways to solve this. Ripple Labs, too. They're not just sitting and waiting for their lawsuit with the SEC to get over. They're working on their own cross-border payment called on-demand liquidity. Yesterday, they announced partnerships with payment firm Lemonway and money transfer provider Xbot. They're planning to use those two solutions along with the ODL network to provide crypto payments for their customers in France, Thailand, and Sweden. Thursday. Okay, now that Voyager Digital has actually gotten into the bankruptcy process, things have gone pretty smoothly. No CEOs are missing when they claim not to be in hiding, as an example. Their plan to sell their assets to FTX for $1.4 billion has gone well so far. That is until the bankruptcy process had a bit of a snag yesterday, because Voyager's executives have snuck in a clause in the proposed sale agreement. They're trying to carve out a little immunity from themselves. And when I say a little immunity, I mean a lot. So Voyager's Unsecured Creditors Committee, and I am an unsecured creditor, but I'm not part of the committee, they object. They're pushing back against provisions that protect the company's directors and officers from future lawsuits, regardless of the fact that most people consider them principally responsible for the current state of things, which presents a bit of a Hobson's choice, because the sale agreement is tied to legal immunity. So what do you do? If you are Voyager's creditors, what do you do? Do you let these executives off the hook and perhaps maybe get your money back faster? Or do you take the fight to court, potentially risk having your case bogged down, potentially risk losing the case, meaning that your assets would be tied up that much longer? So which way do you go? I guess in part you ask, what are those officers and directors wanting protection from? And I'd like to know a bit more about the specifics of those protections. But those findings haven't been released yet. However, we do know that attorneys for the claimants said that the attempts were, quote, particularly egregious because of the potential for colorable and valuable causes of action against these directors and officers. So the group representing the unsecured creditors have filed asking the bankruptcy court to set aside the provisions for legal immunity and proceed with the sale agreement. Friday. Samsung did something interesting today. They said that they were going to use blockchain technology to upgrade the security protocols of all their smart devices, which is a lot of devices. And the name of this thing is sort of familiar, Knox Matrix, similar to their Samsung Knox. So this Knox Matrix is their new blockchain-based security app for cross-device experience. This means it covers everything from smartphones to smart fridges. Samsung is saying that this system works as an individual's own private blockchain, equipping all of your interconnected devices with a blockchain multi-layered monitoring. So this means that your phone is protected as well as your air conditioner. So they're saying that this Knox Matrix will protect users from someone being able to exploit their credentials while also making logins more simple. And this protection is expected to extend to all Samsung devices, regardless of their operating system, whether that's Android, Tizen, or some other OS. This also comes along with an announcement that they were working with Google to improve smart device experiences in the home. Samsung has been making moves in the Web3 blockchain space lately. They're one of the most active investors in the crypto space. Reportedly, Samsung took part in 13 funding rounds last year alone. They've also backed a Web3 game studio, and they've launched a blockchain ETF in Hong Kong. In fact, recently, the managing director for Samsung Next spoke about the importance of the Web3 space. I want to thank you, my listeners, because when you stop listening, I will stop talking. We'll see you tomorrow night.